I'm Bob Lizik, and you're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where the old rockers learn to groove. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. We've got a great interview this week. Bob Lizik, best known as longtime bassist with the Beach Boys visionary Brian Wilson. Bob has also worked with everyone from Madonna, David Bromberg, Billy Joel, Barbara Streisand, Mavis Staples, Jerry Goodman of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Quite a cross-section of artists and styles. Welcome back, Bob, to For Bass Players Only. Great to see you again.
It's good to see you, too. It's been a while.
It has. The last interview we did, the other interview we did on For Bass Players Only was published on July 10th, 2017, believe it or not.
Wow.
And we got the whole story about your Chicago upbringing and the accordion and the polka music around the house,
there.
Family. And there you go. And at the time, you were in the middle of the, the Pet Sounds tour with Brian Wilson. So
right.
That was 5.5 years ago.
Right.
What you been up to in the meantime?
Well, the pandemic took place, and it was 2.5 years of no work. We just but we got back with Brian this past summer. We did 2 months with Chicago, which was great, a lot of fun.
With the band Chicago?
With the band Chicago, yeah. So across, all the big sheds around the country, and that was fun. And we finished that. We were supposed to do a few more dates, but Brian wasn't feeling good, so we had to cancel some stuff. So I've been sitting home doing things at home since then. People send me tracks, and I get to play on them. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
From the comfort and privacy of your own home.
You can do it in your pajamas.
I saw Chicago, boy, this was a couple bass players ago. It was Jason Chef.
Yeah.
I interviewed him, and we still joke about it because I used to like to do the interviews before the show, but we weren't able to do it, so we had to do it afterwards. It was an outdoor venue, Pine Knob in Michigan.
We played there, yeah.
And the only good lighting we could find was in the bathroom of his restroom. So that's where my interview with Jason is. And I've reached out to Jerry. I'm trying to get him to see if I can talk him into doing an interview. I think he lives in Finland or Sweden or somewhere in that part of the world.
Jerry Chef?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So
I saw him at a God, I can't remember how many years ago. It was like Lakeland's 10th anniversary or 20th anniversary or something like that. And he was there along with, God, who else was there? Munch was there. A few people, a bunch of other people, all Lakeland endorsers that had bases named after them. And Jerry Chef had the lipstick pickups on his bass. He sounded great. He just was fabulous. Yeah, it was just so good to see him. I mean, that's the first time I've seen him live, so it was excellent.
Yeah, you've got some Chicago references in what you just. Lakeland, of course, is Chicago, and
right.
Munch is Daryl Jones from the Rolling Stones. And I've reached out to him about doing an interview because there was just a documentary published about him. So I'd like to watch the documentary first so I can ask you about it. We can talk intelligently about it. And he says, yeah, I'll have my people send it to you. I need to give somebody a nudge, or somebody needs to give somebody a nudge, because I'd really love to see that.
Great player. Great player.
Yeah. Quite a pedigree. Miles Davis, Sting, and
everybody. I mean, it again runs the gamut of styles too.
Yeah. One thing you had mentioned last time, you said you were doing some incidental music. Oprah's name was mentioned. I think you said you did something that was on the Oprah show and music library, things like that.
A lot of people were doing that, contributing to the library for her little incidental music. When she would do interviews, they would chop it up into 5-10 second pieces and stuff. So I've written a bunch of stuff for that. It's kind of, since she went off the air, it's kind of dwindling down now because I'm still getting some European use on it. But I think she think her library kind of went to Dr. Oz for a while, so I was getting some things off of that. But it's dwindling down because she's been off the air for quite a while.
Yeah. Well,
so that was it. That was just all stemmed from me doing commercials for so many years, which was it was a great way to make a living.
Yeah, you talked about that a bit in the last interview. And by the way, folks, that interview is still up on ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Just in the little search thing, just put in Bob Lizik, Lizik, and it'll pop right up. As will this one. Anything else keeping you busy these days that would be of interest to our bass enthusiasts?
Just like I said, I'm working with somebody that's doing putting together a sound library disc, doing some bass tracks for this person, and you can buy them for whatever program you have, and it just it comes up with little grooves and everything. So I've been working on that.
Is it an actual bass, or is it a bass sound?
I'm using real bass on it.
Well, that's great, because that was almost a little surprising in this day and age. That it's great that you can actually play a real live bass on a project of that nature.
Yeah, no, that's been fun. We kind of finished it, but I got home and I said, why don't I just send you a bunch of things in every key? So that's what I've been doing. I've been working on things. I'm kind of running out of ideas right now.
You'll never run out of ideas.
Yeah. That, and like I said, some people, I've done a couple of tracks for people that do their albums, their little album projects and things. So that I haven't been playing live much at all. I'm just waiting to hear if we're going to do anything next year with Brian and see what's going on with that. Other than that, just playing with my grandkids, practicing. I've got your book over there that I've been, going through.
Oh, thank you. Which one?
Bass Chops.
Oh, okay.
Great book. I love it. I've got a couple of your books, by the way.
Thank you very much. I just had my 10th book released in
Congratulations.
2022. Thank you. Yeah, it was a little different for me. It's called, what's it called? It's called Funk Jazz Bass. And it is, it's all my original stuff, but I call it a play in the style of book.
Mm-hmm.
Pick 30 bass players, everybody from Jeff Berlin to Alain Caron to Abe Laboriel to Bernard Edwards.
Is that the one that came out a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
Or is this brand new? Okay, yeah.
At least in January. And Nathan East, who also wrote the foreword, Bunny Brunel. Right. So what was challenging for me with that book is when I write music or I write my own grooves or my own lessons, I want to write what I want to say, but I have to write it as if they would play it. Brian Bromberg, Jeff Berlin, all those people. Right. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do that. So that was, it took some real discipline, but it was really enjoyable. Paul Jackson is another one. They're 30 altogether. Esperanza.
Wow. I'd have to get that book. So
thank you. That was actually supposed to be released at the 2020 Summer NAMM show. But the aforementioned pandemic got in the way of that. I do have an idea for another book. I haven't shared it with anybody yet, but still mulling it over, because once I pitched it to the publisher and they said yes, and it's like, yeah.
Now you're committed.
I'm committed. Yeah. Cool. Speaking of bass and bass education, For Bass Players Only, as you know, is a bass instruction site.
Right.
We get more and more people every day from all over the world coming to learn bass. I made reference to old rockers at the beginning.
I've seen that one. That was last couple of them had old rockers in it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I am defining the site, simply because that's who I seem to be attracting. I don't know if they call themselves old rockers. I think most of them do identify that way. I realized that the people that were coming to learn bass at ForBassPlayersOnly.com generally were men in their 50s, 60s, 70s, sometimes a little older. They're not trying to make a career out of being a professional bass player. They may have dabbled in it. They want to play some classic rock riffs with their buddies, some blues shuffles, maybe some walking bass lines, a little funk R&B.
Right.
So I say that to give you some context, because there's such a difference. If I was asking you about a bunch of 20-year-olds or 20-somethings, I think your answer would be very different. But for the people that I just described, we do get a fair bit of women too, but it's mostly men. I want to ask you, as a seasoned professional who's played with some old rockers, what advice do you have for somebody like that who wants to learn bass in that kind of setting? What do you think they should be thinking about?
Well, listen to the classics. Listen to Jamerson. Actually, that's a great book. The Standing in the Shadows of Motown is a great book to have, especially for anybody that wants, especially an older cat that probably grew up with a lot of that music.
When I got that book, it came with cassettes.
Me too.
Actually,
Me too.
My first book came with a cassette, and then we moved up to CDs.
CDs, right?
Yeah,
it's a great learning experience. And again, listen to the old stuff, and you don't have to necessarily cop the lines perfectly, but when you listen to it, it gives you an idea of where they're at. The style, like your book is going to be, the style that they're playing in. Listen to Duck Dawn on that old stuff. Obviously Jerry Jamat, all these guys. I would do that first. The other thing is, I think everybody should learn to read, because there's a lot of information out there that you can get from books. You practice reading. Maybe nobody's going to go out there and try to get a gig doing a theater show if you're 50 years old and it's just starting out. But it's still, it just opens up more of the education factor. I did notice in your last blog, you talked Tim.
Tim Starachi.
Yeah. First thing he mentioned was take care of your ears.
Yes. And
from somebody whose ears are really messed up right now, that's really important to do. And this would go for the younger players, I think, more specifically. But my hearing, my left side is, the high end is gone. It's just way down there. And my right side's a little better, but I think it's really important that they watch the volume that you're listening to, especially with the AirPods and things. You tend to want to crank it because you get a little more bass, or shove it further in your ear so you can feel the bass a little more. That can be pretty dangerous, and it's not good for you. Other than that, other than just listening to a lot of music, especially listen to stuff that you like and find other players that play that way. Go see live music. Go out and see players and watch somebody play. Listen to their tone. Listen to see what they're playing, what instrument they're playing, what they're playing through, and definitely you can find guys that you maybe can give you some tips live. So that's about it.
What about you? You bring up something else. I would ask, as I'm about to ask you about your gear.
Yeah.
They tell me about the basses, strings, and effects. I say, what about amps? And a lot of times they say, well, we don't use amps anymore. There's no backline anymore. It's all
right.
Years. My son got married, what was it, like about 3.5 years ago. And I sat in with the band. The guy had a Lakeland bass, as a matter of fact.
Oh, cool.
String Lakeland. And I said, where's your amp? He said, I don't have an amp. It's in-ears. At a wedding? And it was kind of weird putting his in my ears after that. I got past that, but just making the point that it's so commonplace now that even at a wedding you'd find in-ears instead of an amp.
On the tour, Chicago didn't have any backline. There was no amps, and we did. I like to feel the air move, and actually the good thing is Brian likes to feel that too. So. It's a little disconcerting with the because I've done some theater gigs without an amp, and you're just with the in-ears, and it's kind of, it takes a little getting used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like amps.
What about your gear? Let's segue there.
Well, I've been using Fender live for the last few years. They've been kind enough to help outfit the band, and it's odd because when you see old pictures of the Beach Boys, everything they had white Fenders and all in all their pictures, and we just got hooked up with them, and they've been great. The new line of Fenders are just fabulous. They're just I've got the I forget what the high end of the jazz basses are, because I've been using 5 strings, obviously, because a lot of Brian's stuff does go down low, E flats, Ds, and everything. So rather than having multiple basses on stage, because we have so many guys that are playing guitars, and we have one guitar tech. So rather him take care of the guys that are going to break a string instead of bringing out several different basses. Because people ask, why are you playing a 5-string with Brian when Carol did all that stuff on 4-string? It's sometimes it was tuned down, or the things were adjusted to like Sloop Jump B is an A flat. You need that low E flat in there. And when we do surfs up, it was I had to have a low C and a low B in there because the upright bass was down there. He had an extension on the bass.
Yeah, most of those extensions would go to a C, but
yeah, a C. No, it was a D flat to a C. Sorry.
Okay.
And like in Pet Sounds, I was trying to cover whatever bass was dominant at that time. So I'd be going from playing with the pick to trying to emulate an upright on the low stuff. Anyway, so that's why I was using 5 strings, and one guy changing everybody else's strings it just didn't work out that good live. So, but I've been using Fender, and they've been just great. Fender's been fabulous. I use GHS strings, mainly Super Steels. I love them, and I use the GHS flat wounds on Fender P bass that I've been using, 5-string P bass for a lot of the Pet Sound stuff. Let's see, what I'm using. A Gensler. I'm using the new Gensler heads, which sound great.
Last time you were talking about Ampeg.
I still have my Ampeg. I still have an Ampeg because everybody uses Ampeg. But I still, and actually the Gensler head's going to an Ampeg 410 bottom.
Okay.
But my rig, I still have the old SVT 2 or 3 rack space thing. And man, when I was younger, I used to carry around the regular SVT, and which is why eventually my back is like, oh, please, you're moving a refrigerator every time you're playing your gig. So, and there again, it's loud.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, those were when I was doing my touring days, you never know what's going to be there. So it was usually an Ampeg SVT, or sometimes it was a Gallion Kruger 800 RB. Those were pretty.
What I always run into. I mean, SVT is standards, classic, everything. And we would go, you do a little festival somewhere with a local band, and oftentimes it was a Gallion Kruger. And it took me a while to get used to the difference between the two.
Yeah, they are different. But you mentioned I was going to ask you about playing with a pick. Last time it sounded like you were not much of a pick player, but when you got into Brian's band, you needed it more. And you so did you play at all before that with a pick, or were you strictly a fingers player?
The only time I used the pick is if I had to do a session where somebody wanted like a gun, 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 which is pretty easy to do with the pick. It's the moving around that's the hard part. So I didn't do much with the pick at all before Brian. And it was something I'm really grateful to be able to do it now, because I think we're doing about 70% of his stuff is I'm playing with pick. So. I mean, you got to play good vibrations and you got to mute it. I remember the first time I met Carol.
I know what you're going to say.
What?
That she came up to you and said you need to add a little treble to your tone.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I think I told you at the last interview. Yeah. And you need to add more trouble to your bases. Stick some tissue paper underneath your strings. So
Yeah.
she's great. She's just such a great player. It took a long time before people got to know who she was. As it did with Jamerson and all these other people. When those old records back then, you never knew who was on them.
Yep. I'm a fan of Jeopardy, and they had a category one time. Carol Kay played bass on that.
Oh, wow. Really?
I thought that was very cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. How did they come up with just 5 things that she played on? She played on like 5 million things, probably. Oh, you mentioned Duck Dunn earlier, and you were talking about James Jamerson, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. There's a Duck Dunn book very similar to that. It's called Soul Fingers. And it's all the, Booker T and the MGs and Otis Redding and, all the stuff that he played on. It's a, pretty thick transcription book.
Cool.
And I interviewed the guy who I can't remember his name, but it was at a Bass Player Live, and he had Duck Dunn's actual bass. There's a picture of me somewhere playing it. It's got the sticker of the duck on it.
Yeah.
It's probably the actual strings that Duck had.
It might be.
So what about, you touched on a couple of things coming up, but anything that is on the horizon that you didn't mention, or perhaps something that you've always wanted to do but just haven't done yet? Because you should have done a lot.
No, not really. I'm really not. I'm very thankful for the career I had. I've thought when I was younger that I should move out to LA, etc. But things worked out really well here. I've had a nice career, a family. Stayed here for various reasons. But there's so many great young players coming out of school. And they're looking for gigs too, Somebody asked me, oh, so when you get back to Chicago, you're going to pick up on doing this or doing that, because I would come in town in between Brian gigs, and I'd be able to sub a theater gig or get a theater gig myself or something. But when you're gone, somebody fills that slot. So and it's okay, because I think the young players need to do that. You've done like playing the clubs 5 nights a week. I've done that. And that's a great thing to do when you're in your 20s or even 30s and that. But as you get older, you don't want to be out there starting your set at 10:30 at night.
10:30. I would have loved 10:30. I used to do 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
I did a theater gig at the Hirschfeld Theater on Miami Beach.
Okay.
Playing with the Fifth Dimension and Davy Jones from the Monkees, and we did Phantom of the Opera and all that stuff. So those shows would end, 10:30, 11 o'clock. I would drive over to the Copacabana in Little Havana, and those shows didn't start till like 1:30, sometime later. So I'd get home, and we're waiting around. There was a restaurant, and somebody would say, "Let's go next door for a blast." While we're waiting, there was a window you could walk up to, and there was something, was a cortadito, a cafecito, a colada, whatever it was. And I always described it as 10% mud, 20% shoe polish, and 70% sugar.
Cortado. Was it a cortado?
Colada, cortadito, or I don't know what it was, but so then we're doing the show.
Fired, yeah.
I'd get home at 4:30 in the morning, and then sometimes I'd get an oddball, like a Monday night thing or something. So I was doing 400 to 500 gigs a year in Miami. But again, I was in my 20s.
That's learning. Because the clubs in Chicago were like 5 sets a night, 5 nights a week.
5 sets a night.
Oh yeah, 5 sets a night. You start at 9 till 3:30 or something, and you're moving your own gear, you're moving your own PA.
Yeah.
But again, you're playing a lot and you're learning, and you're getting your stamina together, you're getting your chops together. That doesn't exist anymore. When we were in Chicago, I was talking with Pankow about some of the old clubs that they used to play in Chicago before they hit, when they first, before they got signed. And we're just reminiscing about all the old places that you had to play, and you're playing, 4 or 5 sets a night. And that's how you get them together.
I think I asked you this last time, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What would you be if you weren't a bass player?
Uh,
Something outside of music.
I've thought about that. A history teacher. I love history. Now, I don't know enough about it, but that was like one of my favorite subjects. And I like to read, about historic or biographies and things.
Me too. I love that. You've made a lot of history too.
I've had a lot of fun too. It's been a great ride.
Well, that's great. I do get to Chicago now and then, so we'll have to get together and
Call me. We'll do dinner.
that sounds great. Well, Bob, this has been great. Keep doing what you're doing and say hello to Brian for us all. And
We'll do.
much luck and continued success to you always. And thanks for the good advice. Take care of yourself. Take care of your health, including your ears and everything else. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where the old rockers learn to groove. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. Thanks so much to our special guest, Bob Lizik. And I will see you all next week right here at ForBassPlayersOnly.com. In the meantime, let's play bass.